Welcome to this video where we want to learn how to get your own Git server. The Git server is the server which contains your repositories where you are cloning from, pulling from and pushing to. You could host your Git server on your own. If you are interested on that, there are plenty of resources online about the topic. But we want to go the easy way. There are Git services provided which you can use for free. We will talk about two of them now. So the first one I want to show you is Bitbucket. Bitbucket is provided by Atlassian. You can just go to bitbucket.org, click on Get it for free. Then it says you selected Bitbucket. You can also add your own Jira, which would mean you would have your own ticketing system. So if you want that, just click Add, then go to Next. And now you can create your own account. After you registered for Bitbucket, you will basically see a blank page. You can click on the Create button to create a project or repository. Every repository has to be contained in a project. But when we are creating a repository, we can also add our repositories to an untitled project. So here I can select the project. You see we have untitled project, and we can also create a new project here. As this is for our private purposes, I don't care that much about these projects. I'm using this untitled project. Then you will give your repository a name. My personal project, for example. You can specify whether it is a private repository or publicly available. So I typically use private repositories. And these settings here depend on whether you already have created a project locally. So when you already have a project created locally, you might already have a README or a gitignore file. And these settings now depend on whether you have a project locally or not. So a project should have a README. If you have a project locally already, I would say include a README no, and include gitignore no, because I assume you already have them in your local project. If you don't have a local project and want to create a repository first, I would suggest yes, you should have a README, and yes, you should have a gitignore. And then just click Create Repository. So here it is. You see your files. You see your branches and tags. Another option for a free Git server is GitHub. GitHub is widely used by open source projects. You just need to provide your email address and then you can sign up for GitHub. For GitHub it's similar. This time you have to click in the upper right corner, New Repository, then select the repository name, My Personal Project. You can specify whether your project is public or private. As you can see, by default, for GitHub it is public, and for Bitbucket the default was private, so you can choose between that. And then here you have the same settings. You can say whether you want to add a README file, and the same for the gitignore file. Again, I would say these settings depend on whether you have a project locally already. When you already have a project locally which contains a README and a gitignore file, I would say no to add a README, and also say no to the gitignore file. But if you are creating your repository first without having a project locally, I would definitely suggest to add a README and a gitignore file. The license is important for open source projects. So when you want to create an open source project, you need to decide which license your project should have. And then just click Create Repository. And here you see a very detailed description on how to get your code to your repository. I like this description. In the beginning it was very helpful for me. Although I created my projects in Bitbucket, I looked it up in GitHub, because in GitHub it is more detailed. After you have done that a few times, creating a repository and pushing your first commit, you will remember that you really just need to follow these steps, and we will do that together now so that you can see that it's that easy. So the first step, this echo command, is for the case that you really have an empty repository. So let's assume we have nothing yet. We don't have a project. Let us first create a folder. My personal project. Now we need to switch into that directory. And now follow these steps as they are listed here. So first thing is just adding a headline to the README and the README itself. With Git init, we initialized the Git repository. We can now add the README file to the change list. Now we will create a commit containing this README file. first commit. The next command will specify what our main branch will be. I think this is a new step. I did not do this in the past. So we will specify the main branch as being main. What I've seen a lot is master being the main branch. It's up to you, it's just a name. But as we want to follow the instructions provided here, we will just use the name main for our main branch. And then for the next one, I'm too lazy to type that, so I will just copy. And then we will push to the remote repository. That's done. And when I refresh now, our README will be displayed here. The same steps would need to be applied for Bitbucket repository, for any new repository. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.